The show we
we
got
do.
Bernard Kerik. He's going to be here in a few minutes. He was supposed to come in around 7:30, 7:40, but he's early. He's getting coffee, and we'll get him in here. So a fascinating story.
Yeah.
Right?
His book is called From Jailer to Jailed. He was a police commissioner here in New York, and then he wound up going to jail.
Right.
And we didn't get the book in advance for some reason, so I didn't have a chance to read the book. But his one sheet is pretty interesting. So, yeah, he's actually someone I'm really looking forward to talking to.
The full title, From Jailer to Jailed, My Journey from Correction and Police Commissioner to Inmate Number 84888-054. So there you go.
Yeah, you don't meet many police commissioners who spend time in prison.
No, and he has a lot to say about his time in jail. He thinks that system needs to be corrected.
Yeah.
So, and then a little later this morning, we got Ricky Gervais. We're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
He just loves doing this radio show, man.
He does.
We're waiting for the bottom to fall out where all of a sudden he's like over. He's over us.
I found another one.
Right. But no, he even tweeted yesterday, I'm doing my favorite radio show.
Yeah, he enjoys a good chat.
All right. And then we got Rich Voss coming in today. We got Sherrod Small. So, and then we got audio of Ron and Fez. Big day yesterday for the Ron and Fez show.
Yeah, I heard.
End of an era. Fez has announced his retirement.
Yep.
He's going back to what? Florida. You think he'll make it back to Florida?
What do you mean, make it back?
I don't know. He shaved his head. That's usually a sign.
Did he shave his head?
Yeah, he shaved his head, a la Taxi Driver.
It was a bet, though.
Yeah. Okay. He announces his retirement as his head is shaved. That's a little creepy to me.
Well, he thought CM Punk would be at WrestleMania, so he wasn't, so he had to shave his head.
Oh, good morning, Rich Voss. Sit down. We're very busy today. We got Bernard Kerik coming in. What would you ask Bernard Kerik? You got a question? Are you prepared for this?
He'll be here shortly.
When I ask him, I go, "Who are you?"
You don't know who Bernard Kerik
He's
is?
the old police commissioner. Come on, stop it.
And then he went to jail, though. That's the story here.
What would I ask him?
Yes.
I don't know, like,
Maybe a stop and frisk question, or that's our screensaver now.
Yeah, it's
You
a
without a
picture of you
shirt
without a
on.
shirt on.
Yes.
Looks good.
Well, you did it.
I'll say it does.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. What's his nice smooth body?
Right.
Started my mornings.
Older gentleman's body.
I like that his waistline on his pants are pulled down.
Yeah.
I like that too.
You can see that V.
What are you looking for, Rich?
What are you doing?
my earpiece.
Oh, your earpiece.
What's it?
Are my earpieces in there?
What do you mean?
I left my
He's looking for
fucking
earbuds.
Oh, why doesn't he just use the headphones?
Difficult.
You're not.
All right.
You're not too much of a distraction. It's okay. Just keep wandering around the studio.
He really is.
What the fuck?
It's
Sit
like
down.
a special needs child who's just walked into the room.
Right. Sit down. Now what are you doing?
I'm trying to find my earpieces. Come on, let's not start. I didn't do anything.
I'm not.
Well, use them for now.
I was coming. Thank you.
You have your own earpieces that you just leave here?
Yes.
Why don't you bring them home with you?
Because I didn't pay for them. They, my producer, that I forget his name, but he's a nice kid, and he.
They're all tangled.
Yeah, that's what happens. Sometimes they get tangled.
Yes, I know. I left mine here and someone stole them.
They
Someone
stole them.
Who would steal those?
Good point. Maybe no one.
No, I don't think anyone stole
I
them.
think he lost them.
You might be right. And
Right.
here I am just trying to get Sirius XM to foot the bill.
What's on your arm?
I have a tendonitis.
Oh, I thought maybe that's some Anthony gave you a present.
Oh, yeah. It looks like an arm med. Almost like a la Nazi.
It's got a little. It's got a little tendonitis in his elbow.
Yeah.
A little
really?
tennis elbow.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's what the best you have is wow.
You got a wow out.
It's early. I'm not gonna. I'm just.
All right, no, that's true.
I'm getting prepared for all of your great guests today.
Yeah, we have two.
Bernard
good ones.
Kerik, that's a big get.
I want to know where you get your IDs from. I can get an ID on Thursday morning here.
Yeah, you could. There's it's in the basement. It's the superintendent's office.
You need
Or
an
it's
ID.
The building guy.
Thank you, sir.
ID you get. What happened to Sam's hair?
He got.
What are you whispering?
Why would you? I didn't want
We
to
could talk
acknowledge
about it.
Huh?
Yeah, it was. He had his hair cut off.
What's that?
We bet him. It was a bet, and he lost the bet.
So he cut a half an inch off. It's not that much different.
Yeah.
You definitely look like a Dr. Seuss character.
Yeah. He's Montgomery from Fame now. That's what he looks like.
Yeah.
It doesn't look bad.
Shut up.
I mean,
Does look bad.
It does. No, I mean, for a guy who's going to have a kid.
Are we going back into this?
You're gonna have a kid.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
No.
When does
No.
the baby due?
It's not.
I thought you changed your mind. I read on Twitter that you're going to do it now.
Well, what I read about you on Twitter wasn't all that kind, so I generally don't believe what I read on Twitter.
I wrote it.
Oh.
Are you set now?
I'm perfectly
You
fine.
ready to go?
This is so much better.
Good.
I like that Voss gets in like 4 minutes after the show starts instead of 4 minutes before the show
And
starts.
just stops everything.
So that 4 minutes has to be done on the air.
Of course.
Instead of, like, if it was just the other 4 minutes on the other side, we could have just settled everything.
Right.
And then gotten on a roll.
we
Everything would have been
That's
smooth.
true.
We started our roll.
I would have respected this a lot more from you if your hair looked a lot better than it does.
There's not even anything there to
It's
goof
horrible.
on, really. He just got it trimmed.
Did you see it before?
It looks shitty then. It looks shitty now. End of subject. Right? The hair discussion's over.
I think you're upset about it. Huh? You're upset.
About what?
Your hair and us talking about it because I've never seen you mad before.
I'm not mad.
All right. Well, Jesus. All right. Why don't we should get Bernard Kerik in here.
Yeah.
Yes, Rich.
What did he go to jail for?
He's rolling, bringing him down. Ask him.
Please ask him that.
No.
Yes.
I'm from New Jersey.
No, you ask him
So
that.
ask him. He can
That's a
handle it.
great
That's why
way
he's here.
because there's other
Promoting
people
a
out
book.
there that don't know why he went to jail. So and I want you to whisper it like that. That would be wonderful. Please do that. All right.
I mean, I'm not.
I'm gonna say good morning to Bernard Kerik. I'm gonna say it's a pleasure to meet you, sir. And then I'm gonna go. Rich Voss has something to ask you. This is Rich Voss. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right.
I mean, if that's how you guys want to run your show, I'm just a guest.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question.
I think you gave us a very good idea and a way to break the ice. So he was big time in New York City.
How long ago was I? Why don't I?
How
know
long
this?
ago he was around for 9/11 with
He was
Rudy
he was the
Giuliani.
commissioner, yeah.
Oh,
And then he did a little of that Homeland Security for a while.
I don't know if he actually took the year or not. We'll ask him. I know he got Bush wanted him to do it, but I don't think he took it.
Oh, in the end, he didn't.
I don't believe he did. No.
Yeah, okay. For some reason, I felt like he was there for a little while, but
I don't even know. Didn't they disband that? I think they are taking that apart. No more
What?
Homeland. The Homeland Department handle Homeland Security.
well, that would be smart to take that apart.
Why?
Oh, of course we need Homeland Security. Why would they take it apart?
I mean, because it's probably covered by
Break
the
down,
agencies.
break down the TSA and make that better if you want to save money.
he's coming. Right now. All right, he's on his way. He's coming. Rich.
Oh, let me see. Oh, yeah.
You're going to look at the book now?
What do you
It's
want?
too
What do you
late
want
to
to
look at
brush
the
up
book.
real quick?
No, please, I'm going to start reading. I'm going to start reading now.
He goes, let me see that.
Yeah.
The guy is 10 seconds away from the studio, and you want to look
Bernie,
at
I
his
read
book?
the first 3 words. It says here, my name is Bernard B. Kerik. What does the B stand for?
In all fairness, we just got the book, too.
We literally just got it.
Good morning. Good morning. Bernard Kerik in studio.
just got this
Welcome.
book.
What's going on?
Hello.
Well, we just got the book, unfortunately, so we weren't able to peruse it.
Okay.
But
Good.
wow, you're all dressed nice. It's too early to be that nicely
Well,
dressed.
sometimes
How dapper this guy
you got
looks.
to do it. You got to do it.
Yeah, I would assume you're doing a lot of TV this morning.
Doing some TV. I'll be with Roseanne Scotto shortly.
Roseanne, nice.
And then I'm going over to Jersey City with the mayor there.
Right.
doing, some criminal justice stuff.
Okay. Jim Norton, Opie, and this is comedian Rich Voss, who has
How
a
you doing,
question
Rich?
for you.
Listen, they told me you were in jail. I don't know what for.
Don't worry about it.
You know what?
I'm a
I don't
nice
care
guy.
because
I'm really a nice
that's
guy.
all the past. You know what I mean? Like I believe move forward, live and let live. That's how I
Don't
believe.
look at the past.
I have 29 years sober a couple of weeks ago.
I'll never
And I
make
was-
30 years
couple
sober.
weeks ago. And I was, you know what I'm saying? You look like he should look if he was healthy.
He's implying that I'm in poor shape.
Are you asking him why?
He wants to know what you went to jail for.
Yeah,
He doesn't know what you went to jail for.
Yeah, because I'm from Jersey. I'm not really up
No one
on.
I'm
cares.
from Jersey, too.
What part?
Where are you from?
I'm from Plainfield. I live in Hillsborough.
Plainfield?
Plainfield.
I was born in Newark.
Get out of here, really?
And I was raised in Patterson. And I went to East Side High before Joe Clark ever cleaned it up.
Really? Did you? So you in Newark? You didn't work on any? You didn't work in the police force in Newark at all, did you?
No, just here. In fact, my son
Right there.
is right there somewhere.
Ciro Mostel?
No, not that guy.
Oh, that's not your son.
He's over there.
Oh, okay.
He's a Newark cop. He's on the Newark SWAT team.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, they are really.
In fact, I have to tell you guys, just
Yes.
on a side note and on a serious note,
Yeah.
the newer cops, the cops all over the city, they love you guys for what you do, your support for them. A lot of military guys I talked to, I know you had Chris Kyle in here.
Oh, hell yeah, we did. We loved the guy.
I can't thank you enough for what you do for law enforcement, for the first responders, for guys like that. And just on a side note, defenders of the conspiracy theorists on the World Trade Center stuff.
Right.
I can't thank you enough.
Wow, Bernard Kerik knows who we are. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
He was brushed up as he was
Yes,
walking.
as he's walking down the hall, Roland is like, "This is a radio show."
They support the cops. They go after the conspiracy guys.
Listen, my son's been listening to you since he was 16, so I hear about it on a daily basis.
We got in trouble with the mayor over the years. We were the voyeur bus guys too. You were around for that, right?
I was the guy chasing the voyeur bus. I was.
Nothing better than
I
having.
remember the mayor calling me saying, "Where is the damn bus? Stop it!"
He got arrested. Jimmy got arrested.
Yeah, I
for
spent the
that.
night in jail for that.
Did you?
Yeah,
Yes.
it was 27 hours in the tombs, which they wanted to just put us through the system because there was nothing they could really, I think, do to us. And they finally charged us with promoting the lewdness of a body. There was no real charge.
And me and Anthony were safely at the radio station when that all went down.
It's so funny
We
how
did not get arrested.
How he tried to connect with him. He spent one night.
What do you
But
mean
no, I
trying to
just
connect?
answered the
It was-
question.
It was
No.
a big event.
Yeah.
I know,
The
I was
mayor
in
actually had to go on the mayor had to go on the news and call us stupid.
Oh, hold on a second. Pertinent information. You were in Amsterdam. What airline did you take? Shut up.
What is that? No, because I called in from Amsterdam. They go,
Did you?
We're going through a problem now.
They gave us Sharpton cell. They said there was a cell that Sharpton usually would use or whatever, the Sharpton suite, whenever he got arrested. They
Is that
kind of-
true? You never told
Yeah,
me that.
They put us in that one.
All right. Well, I have better than that, man.
Yeah.
When I was remanded initially, and they took me up to the Westchester County Jail,
Right.
I was put in the James Brown suite.
Whoa. Nice.
That's what I was told.
Did you guys burn your names in the ceiling with toilet
No,
paper?
I see this guy's been around.
Right.
Yes. Yes, he's been on the hustling up and down the tier for cigarettes for his protector.
Yes.
What was your first day like going in?
When I was initially remanded, look, I ran Rikers Island for 6 years, before becoming the police commissioner. So it wasn't like I didn't know what was coming. But on an honest note and a serious note, the deprivation of freedom, when it's taken away from someone like me or anybody that's never been through this, it's devastating.
Right.
I mean, you go into an arena where you have no control over what you do, when you do it, how you do it, and it's horrifying.
Were you a target in jail?
No, not really. I mean, look, I was in protective custody
Right.
when I first was remanded up in Westchester. Later on, I went to a minimum security camp down in Cumberland, and it's, to go to a camp like that, you have to be a nonviolent offender. You can't have any violence, or you can't be there, and you have to be of a certain security level, because in a minimum security camp, there is no security. There was no fence around the area where I was. There's no locks on the doors. Honestly, if you wanted to walk off and get in a car and leave, you could do that at any time. So it's sort of an honor system.
Wow.
But the reality is, your freedom is still taken away from you.
Right.
The reality is that you still live like an inmate. You live like an animal. You have to eat food that you would never eat on the outside. You have to live in an environment where you have to worry about MRSA, staph infection, HIV. Listen, people have said to me, and I've had reporters do this, they say, well, you went to a country club. You went to a club fed. The reality is, look at it this way. Take the nicest hotel you could find in Manhattan, maybe the Four Seasons or the Ritz-Carlton. Mm-hmm. Go down to that hotel, go into one of those big bathrooms that are probably about 15 by 20. That's twice the size of my cubicle. Lock yourself in that bathroom for a year, as luxurious it is. Come out and tell me how comfy it was.
Right.
Come out and tell me how luxurious it was.
Right.
The deprivation of freedom is profound for anyone, unless you're an institutionalized person. it's mind-altering.
What made you want to be a cop? Because you can't. Your like backstory is really interesting.
I was born in Newark, and I was pretty much I was abandoned by my mother when I was 3. My biological mother was actually murdered when I was 9. I went to Eastside High.
Did you know who
dropped
killed her?
out.
Sorry.
Well, that was investigated later, and the people that were responsible for her death were dead by the time we figured it out.
Did she get herself into a situation, or was it?
Yeah, she had a very tragic, horrible life. She wound up, she was a prostitute. She wound up, and I didn't find this out actually until I was the police commissioner of New York City.
No kidding.
Many years later. And the state of Ohio, the authorities in Ohio, helped us investigate. We pretty much determined who was around her and who was responsible for her death at the time, but it was too late. They were all dead and gone.
How hard was that to hear?
It was horrible. I mean, look, I didn't know her. I didn't know her. My stepmother, if you will, is the only real mother I ever knew, and she's been my mother. But still, you want to close that gap. You want closure, and to find out all this stuff. I had a sergeant that worked for me who was one of my best friends. He walked into my office and he said, "I found her." This was when I was writing my first book in 2001, and he hands me a file folder with her arrest sheet and all these aliases, and I have to tell you, it was devastating. Wow. So but I look, it is what it is. It's life, and you deal with it. I as far as being a cop, I quit high school when I was in the 11th grade. I worked for a moving company for about 1.5 years. And then I determined, when I really realized that humping furniture wasn't getting it, at 18, 19 years old, I joined the Army. Went in the military police corps.
Why'd you quit in 11th grade? You were just about there.
Well, a couple reasons. One, my mind wasn't on education. Eastside High, it's the major motion picture, Lean on Me, Joe Clark. It really wasn't an institution for learning at the time. I did more fighting than educating.
Was there a lot of white kids there?
Yeah, about 25.
Was that 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s?
This was in 72.
72.
I was there from 69 to 72.
All right.
So it was a rough place. It was just, wasn't a school for learning.
Right.
And I got into the martial arts at 13. I was a black belt by the time I was 16. And I almost enjoyed fighting. So it was I was either going to get locked up or I was going to get killed, one or the other. So it was probably better I left. And I took off in the 11th grade. I worked for 1.5 years until I went in the military. And from the time I went in the military, my career took off. Every job I had, I sort of jumped to the top. I ran, at one time, I ran the Passaic County Jail in Patterson. At 31 years old, I was the actual warden there.
Wow.
I ran that, and then I gave it all up. I gave up the stars and the gold shield and all that stuff to become a New York City cop. That was my lifelong dream. And
what year was that? About
86.
86. Okay.
86, and that was after being a warden. That was after spending 4 years in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I was there from 78 to 80 and 82 to 84. I worked for the security staff of the royal family. I was actually in Saudi Arabia when they seized Mecca in 79 during the Iranian Hoscu rescue mission, the aborted mission in Iran.
See, the king just died. You knew the king?
I did know the king. The king that just died was the Crown Prince. When I was there, from 82 to 84.
Abdullah? Is that his name?
The one that just died is Abdullah. And Salman, the guy that took over, he was the actual, you guys will get a kick out of this, he was the actual governor at the time of Riyadh. And it was his bodyguard, the head of his security detail, was the executioner. And as you know, in Saudi Arabia, they have... they behead people for homicide, for murder.
Right.
And I watched his bodyguard on a number of occasions take people's heads off.
You've watched that?
The guy that's in The King now.
Right.
Yeah, he was the Riyadh.
You actually were there and watched beheadings?
I've seen many.
Was it in that Chop Chop Square, or was it other places?
Chop Chop Square. Were you over there?
No, but that's a pretty common. It's such an odd name, and it's pretty well known about that place.
Basically, what it is, it's outside. I lived in Riyadh at that time, but in Riyadh, at the principal mosque, the primary mosque in Riyadh, that's where the executions are, and they would cordon off that square. The police would come out and basically read off a decree as far as what happened and what this guy did, and then at some point the man comes out, guy gets down on his knees, handcuffed behind his back, and they take his head off.
Does that affect you to see that live?
The first time you see it,
right.
Actually, it is it's almost like watching a cartoon where you think this isn't real to somebody like us.
Sure.
But here's the problem, and here's what we're dealing with today in the Middle East. You have all these young kids that are engaged in this behavior with ISIS and ISIL and all the Al-Qaeda and Al-Shabaab and all these groups over there. They're doing this stuff on a daily basis. It's going to have a major impact on them. And then think that we have Americans. We have people from this country that have gone there, and they're doing this stuff. Well, what do you think they're going to do when they come back? They're going to use an American passport to get back into this country. And they're going to come back into the country, and where are they going to? Like McDonald's to get a job? They're going to go to UPS and work? No. They're going to sit around here and wait for some opportunity and go out and do the same thing that they were doing there. So it's really it's gonna be,
are you saying these are Caucasians or Middle Eastern Americans going there?
No, we have Americans. We have American citizens, non-Arab American citizens that have left this country and gone to Syria and Iraq to fight against us and fight against those governments. And we have many, many Brits and Europeans that have done the same thing. The director of the FBI last month said that this is a major concern for us, and it should be. We have enough problems in this country with what I would consider sleepers, people that are here that are of the radical mindset that want to cause this country harm. We're going to have more problems if we can't monitor and capture the people that have gone abroad to do this type of stuff, and they come back and harm the country.
It's going to be really hard to fight that, obviously. That's not an easy one.
No.
Wow.
You were appointed by Bush, I think, to be the head of Homeland Security, but you weren't able to take the gig, right?
No, I was nominated on December 3rd of 2004. And then I withdrew exactly a week later on that Friday. I withdrew. I had to admit that my wife and I had a nanny, a domestic servant, that we had not paid tax on.
Oh, right. That's right. I remember that now. So you become a cop in '86. I mean, this city was a lot different in 1986. You've seen some changes.
'86. I actually had a foot post. I was in Midtown South Precinct. That was my precinct. My first command was over in the 7-9, where those two cops got killed in December. My second command was Midtown South, and I worked here in uniform and plain clothes. I had a foot post. Now think of this. You guys have been around. 1987, I had a foot post on 42nd Street between 7th and 8th Avenue.
Wow. Oh, my God.
So I used to tease my son. I said, I'd come out here. You'd come out for 8 hours, and from 1 minute to the next for 8 hours, you'd run up. I'd run up and down that street. Man with a gun here, robbery in progress there, woman being molested in a theater here, somebody jumping off the Times Square Hotel. It was an insane place to work back in the 80s.
Well, I'm a Long Islander, and we would come in as high school kids and just wander around Times Square because it was amazing just to watch.
You know who he is? Yeah, I know who he is. He's one of those Long Island kids that comes in and he gets the fake ID.
Oh, yeah, all that shit. All that shit. They sold them at at every storefront. But I mean, that was the place to be. We would come in for concerts at Madison Square Garden or whatever, and we would always come up to Times Square just to see the craziness of it. I mean,
and look, for the cops that enjoy being cops, that like that type of work, if you were an active cop, you were busy all afternoon, all night.
So you must laugh when you go through Times Square now and you see all these tourists and they have no idea what this place used to be a mere
honestly,
15
guys,
years ago.
I'm extremely proud. You know, it's different, but I'm proud of what we did. I mean, that transition started under Rudy Giuliani, under me, and I'm proud of what it turned into.
What, the broken window thing, like the small quality of life crimes?
Well, the small quality of life that leads to maximum crime reduction.
Whose idea was it to turn Times Square around? Like, no, I know this is going to be a hit, because you have to get people to believe and get in there and start changing it. Now it's a no-brainer to get some space in Times Square. But
here's what happened. When the mayor came in 1994, he basically said, look, and if you recall, there was, I think there was a Time magazine, The Rotten Apple.
Right.
Everybody remembers that photo.
Right.
The mayor came in and said, look, nobody's going to work or come to visit or you go to school in a place where they're not safe. So the principal thing that has to happen is you have to turn crime around. You have to reduce crime. And the reality is, for every percentage point we reduced crime, you would see an increase in tourism, in real estate development, in economic things in this city. It all started to flourish. And the mayor brought in Bill Bratton, who was the police commissioner today. He brought him in then. Bill Bratton had a guy that worked for him named Jack Maple. Jack Maple created and assisted Bratton in putting together CompStat. And from that point forward, crime started to drop. And once it started to drop, everything else started to flourish. And by time I left as police commissioner, the city had achieved about a 63 to 67% reduction in violent crime and a 75% reduction in homicide. The biggest crime reductions in this country of any police department anywhere, and that was the trend that started around the nation.
But who was the first company that said, "All right, we'll take that chance in Times Square"?
I can't remember the companies, but you know what happened? It was almost like it was just rolling along, and then all of a sudden everybody sort of started to realize, because as crime dropped,
right,
there were still people in the city saying, "Oh, New York City's violent. New York City's out of control, and we can't take it." But what they didn't realize was crime was decreasing almost monthly, and then all of a sudden, people started to look around, and all at once, all these real estate developers came in and said, "You know what? I'm going to give it a shot." And bang! Once they did,
it was over, Johnny.
If Homeland Security and the FBI can use profiling, I mean, obviously to stop serial killers, terrorism, how come when police do it, it's racism, or and they won't let it happen?
Here's the thing that I think people have to realize and remember. There's racial profiling. There is racial profiling. There are people out there, and this has been found in various courts, that aggressively or have aggressively gone after people because of race. But there is also criminal profiling. And I don't give a damn what anybody says. That is a real process. We've taken a lot of the cops' ability away to do their job when we reduce or we eliminate stop and frisk. Stop and frisk is a tool, a very important tool, that the cops need to do their job. It has to be monitored, it has to be tracked, and it has to be used correctly. It's not an open market on minorities. But at the end of the day, the cops have to have the ability that if they work in a bad area, it's a high crime area, and they're put in that area to reduce crime and attack crime, they have to have the ability to go out there and look for bad guys. And if they're basically told, you can't stop anyone for ABC, 50 different reasons, that's going to hinder their ability to find bad guys. Because there's cops in this city. I was in plainclothes. I was in anti-crime. I would go out, walk the streets of Times Square, and look at guys and know this guy's dirty. Not because of the color of his skin, because he's in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's wearing the wrong outfit. He's
shifty.
He's doing things. But this is instinctual stuff that cops know.
Right, that you guys are trained to look for.
And over time, your experience, you learn. You learn and you learn and you learn. I am dead set against anybody stopping anyone based on race. But if you want to find the bad guys, let the cops do their job.
Would you like to be the commissioner under de Blasio?
No, I wouldn't.
What do you think of him?
I love Bill Bratton. I think Bratton's doing a tremendous job. And, he's doing the best job he can. Under the circumstances, but I think it's difficult.
Can I ask what the circumstances are that make it like you say under the circumstances, which means like it's not the ideal situation? What do you think is not ideal about it?
I just think I think the mayor, the present mayor, de Blasio, he could be more supportive of the cops, and I don't think he is. And
of course not. I think that's pretty obvious to a lot of people.
Look, I don't know the guy personally. I don't know. I've never met him. I have met him, but I haven't talked to him. I don't know really what he thinks other than what I see, read, hear him say. And I just think it's probably difficult for Bratton to do what he's doing.
What'd you think of after those cops refused to face him because of the two cops being executed, and then he comes out and he's kind of like, well, that was very disrespectful of them. Like he really just seems like kind of a real belligerent ass.
Well, here's the thing: on the cops turning their back, I understand it. When I was a cop, I would have probably done it. But at the funeral, here's the problem. And I've buried, this is a horrible thing to think about, I've buried more cops than any police commissioner in this city.
What's the number? Do you have
23.
23, wow.
23 people that worked for me on September 11th died. And I had to speak at their eulogies. I spoke at their eulogies because their family wanted me to. Just like the mayor talks at the eulogies because the family wants them to or allows them to. If the family invites you to a eulogy, then the cops have to respect that, or they should respect it. And, because that's respect for the families. That's the way I
Did they actually ask the mayor to be there?
Basically, yeah. I mean, if the family doesn't want the mayor there,
right,
mayor's not coming.
Okay, gotcha.
So if they say we want like you to stay away, he'll stay away.
Yeah, the family is given, they're basically given the opportunity, and if I can assure you, if the family says we don't want the mayor to attend, the mayor's not going to attend. So in those circumstances, the family lets the mayor. Basically, it's their family,
right?
And you have to respect the family.
Gotcha. I've talked to a lot of cops, like you said. We do support the NYPD, and the mayor's in a really, really tough spot. What can he do to turn this around? Because most cops don't respect him whatsoever in the city.
I think the key is Bill Bratton. The key is Bill Bratton. A lot of people have speculated whether he's going to stay or leave. I think for the city's sake, hopefully for the cops' sake, I think he stays. I had an enormous amount of respect for him when I was a cop and I worked under him. I know what he did in L.A. I saw what he did in this city. I know him well enough to know that he is a big supporter of the men and women in the NYPD. But he's in a difficult circumstance. He works for a man that I don't think has as much respect for the cops as he should.
Works for a very stubborn man. De Blasio seems to be very stubborn.
Yeah, I don't know him that well. I just know what I've heard.
We know the same as you. Then, just how he comes across on TV.
Did you have any fights in jail?
No.
It's a very childish question. I just wanted to ask it. I know that's a 10-year-old boy question.
No.
Did you make any weapons, mister?
No, I had no fights. I really didn't even have many disagreements. I had a couple of these. I think the one of the craziest things was the conspiracy theorist. The Jesse Ventura's. People trying to tell me that the World Trade Center was attacked by America, and we did it, and the Jews did it, and you know, that kind of stuff. And that was my most difficult argument.
Well, let's talk about 9/11. Where were you that day before it all hit?
I was when the first plane hit, I was in my office. When the second plane hit, I was standing outside the building. We had tried to get into the operations center, the command center, which is at 7 World Trade, right across the street from Tower 1. And I was waiting for the mayor to show up. We couldn't get onto the block because people were jumping down onto Vesey Street. They were coming off the building. And that's when the second plane came through Tower 2, and I was standing under it. So we had.
Did you see the plane hit?
Oh, yeah. Well, when you see that big orange fireball blow out of Tower 2, I'm standing on the street under it.
Wow.
And we actually, my security detail gave me a serious wedgie, dragged me up the block, put me behind the federal building, the post office there, and waited for all the debris to come down. And I have to be honest, I didn't even know what happened. That plane came from the southern tip of Manhattan, blew through the north side of the tower, and it wasn't for about 10, 15 seconds until I heard the aviation pilots yelling into the radio that a second aircraft had just hit the building. I didn't know what that was. The explosion was so big and so loud and powerful. The heat, I had no idea what happened.
But you actually saw the plane, so you
I didn't see the plane.
You just saw the explosion.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So, what do you say to the people that say that just didn't happen that way? That there were no planes.
Were there planes, but they were radio operated? These
some of the conspiracy guys are now going with there were never planes.
They're kooks. Look, the bottom line is they're nuts. You know, I was there. There's a bunch of people that were down there. I saw the damage. I saw the devastation. In fact, the shaft from the second aircraft, when that plane blew through the second tower, a shaft from the plane, as we were running up West Broadway, hit one of my bodyguards in the back of the leg. And you know, we're lucky at that point that we got up the block fast enough. Another 10 or 15 seconds, we would have been smothered with material that was coming off that building. And you have to realize that those beams, remember the beams that stuck out of the ground?
Of course.
Those beams were 1,700 pounds per linear foot. Think about that. You know, that's the stuff that's coming down on you. And when the buildings imploded, people have said, well, they blew up the buildings. I had a guy that got in an argument with me in prison. And he said, they were blowing up the buildings, and I heard the explosions. I heard those bombs when those French guys were filming. And I just looked at the guy and I said, yeah, I heard that too. I heard those bombs. I said, you know what those bombs were? I said, you know what the sound of a body dropping 1,000 feet, hitting an aluminum awning sounds like? That's what you heard.
Right.
And they were happening 1 second after another.
I know.
That's what you hear. You hear people falling into that courtyard that were jumping from 1,000 feet up. There were no bombs. There were no computer images. This was a serious attack on this country by people that have a very demented view of freedom and the religious freedom and the economic freedoms we live by. And they're no different from the people we are now fighting in Syria and Iraq. And they're no different from the people that have, since then, on 13 or 14 different occasions, tried to attack us right here in New York City. So, you know, people have to get, you know, they've got to focus on this. This is a war that we are going to fight for decades to come. And it's an extremely dangerous time for this country.
And how does it end decades from now? How does this whole thing turn around?
I got to be honest, people don't like when I say this. The reality is, you ever see the movie Kingdom? Remember the movie Kingdom with Jamie Foxx?
No. I never saw it, but I know.
All right,
I know them.
I saw Ray.
Huh?
I saw Ray.
It's a different movie. Kingdom was based in Saudi Arabia. It was about terrorism. But at the end of the movie, there's a very telling statement that Jamie Foxx had made during the movie. And the statement is, we're going to kill them all. And here's the problem. We're either going to kill them or they're going to kill us. There is no diplomatic solution to fighting this war. There is none. Because the people that want our demise, the people that want the demise of Israel, the people in Iran that have said we're going to blow Israel off the map, that they mean it. You know, every time we have one of these events in this country or somewhere else, people stand around and sit around and talk about how shocked they are that this happened. What are you shocked about? What are you so surprised about? They keep saying they're coming.
Right.
They put it all over social media. They're recruiting everybody under the sun. They said it. Iran says, the leaders of Iran have said, we are going to blow Israel off the map. Okay, they said it. Mm-hmm. Take their word for it. They're going to do it. So you're either going to deal with that or you're not. We can sit around and do nothing and wait, or you're going to fight this fight. We're going to kill them or they're going to kill us. That's the bottom line.
So if Israel, which I support because I'm a Jew, let's say Israel gave Palestine, even Jerusalem, said this is your, there would still be threats on, they would still want to take out Israel.
I believe they would.
No matter what Israel does.
It doesn't make any difference.
Because when Arafat, when Clinton and then Arafat said, give us Jerusalem, Arafat blew all those peace talks right down when he asked for Jerusalem. So no matter what Israel does, but then we have all these people in this country that are so anti-Israel in Europe and this and that. No matter what Israel does, it's not going to stop. If Israel gave the whole land of Palestine, then it would be, America would be their complete target.
We have a there's something going on right now that's really a benefit to us. And that is, for 14 years, we have pushed to get the Arab nations and the Gulf states involved in the fight, okay? And we tried our best. Well, we now have two allies other than Israel that are some of the most important allies in the Middle East. One is the King of Jordan. Now, if you go through the book, and I want to talk about the book for a couple minutes.
Of course.
Yeah. But if you go through the book, there's 2 or 3 chapters that deal with me working for the King of Jordan. I worked for him personally and privately for almost 4 years. I know him extremely well. The King of Jordan was the commander of special forces before he was ever king. In fact, he didn't want to be the king when he was appointed by his father in 1999. He never thought he was going to be the king. He is an enormous ally for us. The new president of Egypt, El-Sisi, he is no joke. And he despises radical Islam, that view. He despises these terrorists. You now have 2 of the most substantial military leaders in the Middle East. They're on our side.
Right.
And they're getting the Emirates, and they're getting, even Saudi Arabia recently went into Yemen to take out some of these camps in Yemen. We now have a circumstance where we are getting their support. If I was the president, I would go to the King of Jordan. I would go to El-Sisi, the president of Egypt, and I'd say, you know what? What do you need? What do you need? They have far better intelligence capabilities than we do. Far better. They have boots on the ground that we don't want to infuse in the region. We can give them all the air support they need. Let them do this.
Right.
Let them do this. They know who the enemy is far better than we do.
Right.
And they can get to them far better than we can. And they're all, right now, they're all concerned about Iran, and they're all concerned about this threat. When Saudi Arabia is now fighting against this threat, you know it's serious because their throne is on the line.
Of course.
Why have they not been fighting? Because Saudi Arabia, I'm always very irritated with, because our relationship with them is so, we kind of do what they want us to do, it seems, and yet all of these, or so many of these radical people come from Saudi Arabia. It's like, why are we
here's
so
the thing.
hands-off?
I think Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Yemen, historically, they have sort of paid their way out of this to keep these people, afar from them. Mm-hmm. But basically, in essence, what they've done is they've fermented it.
Okay.
They've supported it financially. We're in a position right now where I think everybody realizes if we don't deal with this, if we don't kick their ass, they're here. They're going to take over.
Right.
And I think that's why everybody's coming together to fight as one. And we, the United States and Europe, and any country that lives in freedom, now is the time to support them.
Right.
Now is the time to fight this fight.
But then why are so many countries in Europe anti-Israel? Because they're getting oil from these people? I mean, why would all this focus and all this hatred and all this blame be placed on Israel?
The only thing I can think of, especially when you go into the Arab nations, the only thing I can really think of is that there is a propaganda machine that is in the Middle East and Europe that is beyond anything I've ever seen before. When you go into some of the Arab countries, Al Jazeera and some of these networks, Arabia, they have TV stations that run around the clock showing all these atrocities that they claim is done by Israel. They don't show any of the terrorist stuff. They don't show anything else. Israel responds to an attack, and they promote that response as Israeli aggression. And it goes around the clock, 24 hours a day on all these TV stations. So you're sitting in your hotels, you're watching this. Listen, there are a bunch of people in the Middle East that would never be against Israel, but they see this stuff and it drives them crazy. And that their propaganda machine is unbelievable.
Right. Off topic, I got to ask you. So when you worked for the King, were you single?
Was I single? No.
Oh, okay.
Because apparently there's a lot of girls that go over to the
I was wondering if he gave you a little taste.
No, King's a good guy, man. Good man.
The book, it's From Jailer to Jail.
Could you explain what you went to jail for? Because we asked you that when you came in, and then we kind of started talking about something else.
I was sentenced to 4 years for false statements and tax charges that related primarily to my children's nanny. I had apartment renovations done that the government said were paid for by a contractor. That I paid for the renovations, but they said the contractor paid additional money to have it, to do the renovations. In 2009, I wound up pleading guilty to 8 felony counts and was sentenced to 4 years.
Wow.
Were they using you as an example? I mean, because people make mistakes on their taxes and...
Listen, you know what? You're always... anybody in a position of power, any high-profile person, I guarantee you're going to hear the word, we have to send an example. We have to, and I have to tell you, on a broad national scale, it's not working. It doesn't work. You're not sending an example. The bottom line is, and this is what the book is primarily about, we are putting way too many people in prison in this country that don't need prison to learn from their mistakes or pay for their mistakes. And the reality is, you see all this paper on these desks? If these were all subpoenas, you give me a stack of subpoenas like this, and you give me the power of a U.S. prosecutor, I promise you, I will indict all of you, and I will indict everybody in this building. All you have to do is become a target. I will indict you, and I will guarantee you go to prison. Because you are not divine. Nobody's perfect. And I don't care how slick your lawyers are. I don't care how good your accountants are. I don't care how squeaky clean you think you are. I hear people say, well, they deserve what they get. Give me subpoenas, give me that power, and I promise you, the same person that says they deserve what they get, I'll put that person in jail.
So do you think that Spitzer was being targeted by somebody? Like somebody, did he kind of screw with the wrong person, and they said, okay, we're going to go back and find the money? And because it seemed like somebody went after him to nail him.
Well, listen, any high-profile person, whether it's Spitzer, whether it's Rod Blagojevich, no matter who it is, whether it's me, think of it this way. A prosecutor's performance evaluation is based on his conviction rate. And don't get me wrong, there are phenomenal U.S. attorneys and state prosecutors in this country. I've worked with many, some of the best in this country. fighting against the Cali cartel. I've put many people in prison, people that tried to kill me, people that killed the guys I worked with, people that I seized tons of cocaine from, or millions in drug proceeds. I've worked with some of the most dynamic and substantial, real good prosecutors in this country. But there are prosecutors out there that take advantage of their power. They abuse their power. They suppress evidence. They suborn perjury. They extort testimony. It's happening. And ironically, there are studies now, people looking at this, it's increasingly happening because there's a lack of accountability in the process. So it happens, and when you're a high profile person, if you become a target, it's, no holds barred. And it's, when you look at an indictment, you look at a piece of paper and it says the United States government against Bernard Kerik versus Bernard Kerik, I promise you, it's the United States government. It's all their money. It's all their agencies. It's everything against that person, whoever's name's on that indictment. And it's close to impossible to fight.
And how come they're never, like, I know sometimes there's just going to be a case that the government loses, but how come they're never accountable if they bankrupt somebody going after them and it just turns out to be a frivolous thing? It's almost impossible to get money back for legal fees.
On that front, they bankrupt, look, it's not that they bankrupt you, it's the system contradicts its mission statement. And that's what the book is about. You get bankrupted as a result of being targeted. Sometimes it's intentional. If you have a prosecutor that abuses his power and does things he really shouldn't do, they can lock up your money. They can guarantee you can't defend yourself. There's a number of things they can do. But even if you do, and I'll give you, from a personal note, in my own personal experience, in the month of October 2009, 1 month, 30 days, my legal bill for that month was $476,000.
Holy shit.
Jesus.
1 month.
Wow.
1 month. You're getting legal bills at $100, $150, $200,000 a month. 1 month, I was billed $476,000. How do you sustain that?
Right.
You cannot sustain that.
Right.
It's impossible. Prosecutors know it. They know that. They know. Eventually, you run out of money. And as I say in the book, I've come to learn that you only have a lot of your constitutional rights if you have the money to pay for them. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. That is not justice.
Did you get a different point of view on that side of it? Because you had been the guy on the other side of it, as the law and order, and then all of a sudden you're facing it.
I did get I got a very different view, and that view came from getting to see people in prison that I would have never spoken to and never met.
Right.
And the reality is, like I said, I've put a lot of people in prison. And I don't have any problems with the people I dealt with and I put there. They were bad people that did bad things. But then to meet a young black man from Baltimore that is sitting in prison for 10 or 15 years for 5 grams of cocaine? Come on.
Wow.
First time, low level, non-violent, 10, 15 years.
Wow.
Commercial fishermen that caught too many fish or caught the wrong size fish.
Right.
A guy that sold a whale's tooth on eBay.
Wait, a guy sold a whale's tooth and he's in jail for that?
There's
Did Eric go after him?
There's some kind of federal crime. If you sell, ivory or something like that.
Right.
But do you actually have to put a guy in prison? That's a regulatory issue.
Right.
Can't we deal with that? Look, I'm not saying any of these guys didn't do anything wrong. That's not my issue. My issue is
that's how we handle it.
We're wasting an enormous amount of money on dealing with these issues. It's not costing you, that commercial fisherman that caught too many fish, well, you would think that, it cost you $30,000 a year to keep that guy in prison. Well, that's what it costs to house him. But it cost you, the American taxpayer, $2 million a year because that guy lost his boat. The 6 people that was on the boat lost their job. He's lost his license. He's never going to work again, and that's another part of the book. Once you're convicted of a felony in this country,
no one wants to touch you.
no one, forever.
I know.
Forever, until the day you die. So
Right.
if you become a convicted felon at 20,
Right.
I don't care if you live to be 120, you're dead.
Right.
So
And then those people have no choice, so they're going to continue, down the road of just committing crimes,
Misbehaving.
misbehaving in a lot of cases.
I think I urge people to read the book, pay attention to it. I've founded the American Criminal Justice, the American Coalition for Criminal Justice Reform, ACCJR.org. Go to the website. Look at the mission statement. Look at what we're trying to do. The laws have to change. The laws have to change. Bad people that do bad things belong in prison. They have to be held accountable. But when good people make a mistake, you can't destroy their lives. You can't annihilate them personally and professionally. And that's sort of the mission I'm on right now. I think our legislators have to get on this issue. We're in a position right now where we have a bipartisan coalition of legislators that are coming together. Rand Paul, Cory Booker, Bobby Scott, Mike Lee. These guys in Washington are finally coming together to look at this